Okay, here in Blurrovision, this is my project to try and help the Ndebe language process there.
1 minute.
I'll explain that in just a second. Let me see what we got here. Okay, we have nobody showing even though there's people there. Hello to anybody who's in chat. Evidently Twitch isn't quite keeping up with that in chat there. I browse Reddit regularly on various subreddits, and one of them is for what's called Neography, which is people who create constructed languages often create a writing system to go with it. They want to understand how languages work. They want to play with languages. Language is a tool that we generally don't think about. We speak it. That's all there is to it. It's built right into our brain that we don't have to worry about it. We probably don't think about it at all until we go to learn a second language or something like that. Now, I'm in North America. I tend to speak English, and that's it. I'm not fluent in anything else. In a lot of other countries, people speak multiple languages. So, Neography is the side aspect of creating languages where you create a writing system. And there was a post in Reddit's Neography from a woman who had created something called Ndebe. And I might be saying that wrong, I'm not sure. And it was interesting. It was really interesting. She hadn't created a language. She just created a writing system for a language she spoke. Igbo. I might be saying it wrong. I'm not sure. Which is a language in Nigeria that apparently doesn't have its own native writing system that accurately reflects a language. And so she set out to create one, and this has been a project she's been doing since 2009, I believe. It's evolved to its current state. So I find this fascinating, and I'm always concerned about languages being marginalized. We lose hundreds of languages a year, where somewhere in the world the last speaker of a language, or the last fluent speaker at least, passes away, and we lose a whole method of human thought and interaction with the world and things like that. Now, Igbo is not in danger of that. It has 45 million speakers or something like that. But if it doesn't have its own writing system, then that kind of endangers the language too, because trying to write it in a system that doesn't reflect the actual language is not going to help. It's going to hinder things. So, oh, hello, Mrs. Actual Kevin. Hello, and hello to Actual Kevin too, for that matter, but I'd already been talking to him on the phone, so I knew he was logged in here. So, the point of Ndebe is to give speakers of Igbo, which has like a dozen different dialects, a method of writing their language that is better than just trying to write it in the Latin alphabet, which is the current system. The current system doesn't let them reflect the tone of the language, and it's a tone language. It has high, middle, and low tones. I've heard them described various different ways, but that'll do, high, middle, and low. So apparently, because it's such a pain to indicate the tones when people are writing it using the Latin alphabet, they just don't bother, which means that communications is being affected that way. And so I found this Ndebe concept quite interesting. The other thing is, of course, that the other methods of writing for Igbo have come externally to Igbo. They haven't come from somebody who speaks the language. And Ndebe has. What do you mean by the tones? Okay, I don't speak Igbo. I don't know a word of it. But from what I understand, you have, and I'm probably going to do this wrong to anybody who speaks Igbo, I'm sorry. Si, si, si. So that would be a rising, a middle tone, and a low tone. Or a high tone, sorry, a middle tone, and a high tone. Si, si, si. I've heard the low tone actually is described as falling, so it might be si. If that's a word in Igbo, then that would actually be 3 words in Igbo. They would be distinct from each other. Much like Mandarin Chinese has, I think, 5 tones, and Cantonese has 8 tones, Igbo has 3. So it's hard for a speaker of English, or actually pretty much any European language, other than possibly Swedish, which I think has a tone used sometimes, to really get how tones work. But they're just as distinct as using different sounds to somebody who speaks a language with a tone. So, with a tone system. So, it's important that the writing system that you use reflects that, I think. Now, I don't read or write any of the Chinese languages, so I'm not sure how well they reflect the tone, but they're a logographic system too. So when you see a particular set of marks, that indicates, you know, house or a direction or something like that. And the pronunciation of it isn't quite incorporated into it. You have to learn those individually. I think somebody learning Mandarin in school, I think, has to learn something like 10,000 different signs in order to be able to adequately read most writing in Mandarin, like read a newspaper or a book or something like that. It's incredibly daunting to me, and it's one of the biggest obstacles for anybody who's learning one of those Asian languages that is tone-based like that, because there's so many signs. It has an interesting side effect that anybody who reads a Chinese newspaper, it doesn't matter what their dialect is, can read the content, because they assign their particular word with tone and everything else to that particular sign. Now, that should be true of Ndebe to a certain degree, because there are, I think, basically 10 different dialects of Igbo, and they use slightly different sounds for the same words. Like I said, I don't speak Igbo, but having talked this over with the woman that created this, I should give her credit. Her name is Lotanna Igwe-Odunze. I hope I got that right too. I sent her a recording and she said it was not bad. So it's something like that. Anyway, Lotanna said that if in one dialect the word is was it afia, in another one it'll be ashia, and things like that. The words are essentially the same, but some of the sounds are switched. So one of the things that she wants to do with Ndebe is, although it'll be awkward for people to enter stuff in, she wants them to remember that these sounds switch from dialect to dialect to try and unify things for people who use the system. Now, what I'm intending to create here is only sort of half of the system. In order to enter it, you're going to have to type in certain letters on a regular keyboard, which will then produce the glyph, that the symbol for that particular syllable. Also, this is a syllabary. Now, we all know what an alphabet is: one sign, one sound. With a syllabary, it's one syllable for each sign. So you can't write just the letter B in Ndebe. You can write ba, be, bi, bo, bu, etc. And in fact, they apparently use nasals as vowels too, so probably boom or something like that I don't understand. I wish I knew more about Igbo. I've been trying to read up on it, but it's complex. It's a neat sounding language from what I've seen, but I don't understand it yet. But it's a syllabary. So I'm going to go and take her graphics and try and rebuild them in the font software I have here. And then I'm going to use something called Adobe OpenType font scripting to basically put some code into the font that says, when you hit a certain keyboard combination, show this glyph. That's the idea. Down the road, it would be better if we actually had some sort of app where you could just pick the symbols that you wanted and it would create the glyph that you needed. That would be a better approach. Then, to me anyway, that would mean that everybody who used it just had to know the symbols. They didn't have to be able to type on an English language keyboard. But this will be an interim solution. Right now, there is no way to enter this stuff directly. Actual Kevin said, why are you doing this stream today? Tell that. Well, I'm doing this because I really, really believe that mostly English is, because of its impact on the media, tending to dominate all the other languages in the world. It's becoming the ironic to say this, the lingua franca, which is of course Latin for French language, which is the common second tongue for people, where everybody can communicate. And I mean, I'm an English speaker. I like English, but there's all these other languages out there that are getting marginalized and put into second place. And I think that's wrong. I think that a language reflects the people and the culture that it originated with, and it's important to preserve that. So adding literacy options to people is important. When I was taking linguistics at university, I'm on the west coast of Canada, by the way, they mentioned that there were all these indigenous peoples in British Columbia, and elsewhere in Canada for that matter, whose languages were dying off because the last speakers of that language were getting older and older and eventually passing away. And that really bothered me. There's lots of efforts to try and preserve these languages, and there's some to try and teach the people of those cultures their language and keep it up and stuff like that. But that's a ongoing, very hard battle. And so when I came across something like this Ndebe thing, although Igbo is not threatened in any way with 45 million speakers, it's got more speakers than Canada has citizens, the fact that there wasn't a writing system for it really tweaked something in my mind and said, hey, if I can help with this, I'll do that. Hi, for Freedom 987. How you doing? Thanks for coming by. I'm just explaining why I'm doing this and why I think it's important. I should start by saying that I have not created this writing system. It's entirely the creation of Lotanna Igwe-Odunze, who said, people are going to have a hard time with my name, so just call me Lotanna. So that's what I'm going to do. She created it. She's a native Igbo speaker, and she felt it was important to try and give Igbo its own writing system. Now, there is, and I'm probably going to botch all the pronunciations here, and I apologize to anybody who speaks Igbo who, has a major pain in the head whenever they hear me say something. There's apparently a very old sort of logographic system in Nigeria. of Igbo origin called Insibidi or something like that. It's basically a set of signs with some meanings and some words associated to them, and it's 4,000 years old or something like that. It's very old. And skim reading the stuff that Lotanna wrote about the development of Ndebe, she started off with that and realized that it wouldn't work. It couldn't be evolved into a proper system easily enough that people would be able to learn. So she went through a number of iterations, and I've only really seen the end version here. But the end version much more accurately reflects the language of Igbo and the way it's spoken. And it has a whole meta element of trying to unify speakers of Igbo so that they're aware of how the other dialects work and things like that. Now, since I don't speak Igbo, I can't speak to how well that's been designed, but it looks fairly comprehensive to me. So I thought if I can, spend some time doing that and help by creating some sort of font that lets people enter stuff in Ndebe, then at the very least they can create a PDF in this writing system and distribute that and things like that. And once it's been built, then we can iterate it as needed to make it work better. What am I an expert in? Actual Kevin said, you've been very clear that you're not an expert in these languages. What are you an expert in that relates to this? I'm not an expert in anything. I'm an enthusiast. I took linguistics in university, but it's been 30 years since I did that. I actually never finished my degree, but I've always loved languages. I love the way they work. I've been playing around with constructed languages for the past while. I've made 2 professionally, one for a BBC Kids show that still hasn't seen the light of day, but I understand they have a very long development cycle, so that's not that surprising. And I can't name the show. I'm still under an NDA. And one for a pen and paper role-playing game published down in Georgia. The language is called Merathi. They wanted me to combine, basically be inspired by a mixture of Irish, Gaelic, and Korean, which is a very strange mix. And I don't speak either of those languages, so it was fascinating to dig into the phonology of them and try and figure out how I could mix those together. Excuse me. I've also always been fascinated with writing systems, much more so than languages, actually. So most of my time doing conlanging, creating your own language, has actually been spent creating writing systems. I've created a pile of them. I don't know if I can bring some up here or not. Just a sec. Open recent. Do I have any of those? Nope. Just a sec. Forgive me. I've got so many files and so many things scattered everywhere here. I have a well-educated amateur's knowledge of writing systems. I'm always working on trying to create new stuff and to try and understand. Let me see here, just a sec. Trying to find the latest version of something here and see if I've got it right. Open. No, that did not work. Just a sec. I'll open the font. I'm looking for an example of something else that I've created just to show off a writing system. I'm hindered by the fact that I have just switched to the latest version of the font software I'm using, which is FontLab Studio 7. And I was using FontLab Studio 5 prior to this. And therefore, a lot of things have changed. See, that's not opening either. Okay, maybe I have to open the font. itself and see if that'll pull it up. No, not there. Let's try this. No, I'm completely failing to open stuff here. Okay, we'll ignore that idea for the moment. FontLab Studio 5 had a PDF manual of 1,000 pages and a bit. I'm not sure what the manual is for FontLab Studio 7 because they've now got it as a website. So I don't know how many pages it is. It isn't one concrete thing I can download. This is the most complex software I've ever used, having started with computers in 1977. It's just stunning how involved creating fonts can be. And this software is cutting edge. As far as I know, it's the most cutting edge font creation software. So I've only just barely scratched the surfaces of it. It's incredibly complex. We take the fonts that we use on a computer or our phone or whatever completely for granted. You just type and there it is. And if you want a different look, you pick a different font, away you go. But the mechanics behind it is, behind fonts, is just insane. Okay, what are the biggest challenges in this project? Everything. Yeah. I'm going to have to generate something like 1191 glyphs. A glyph is one symbol for writing or one component of it. So if you have, like, in Latin writing, A with a grav accent over it, either you have the A character and then the grav accent separately and you link them together when they're being used, or you create a whole new glyph that is A with the grav accent on it. For entering the text in the thing I hope to build here, we're going to have to type in a pile of different keys, and then some coding inside the font is going to redirect that to the correct glyph. But I got to generate the glyphs first. So I went and made a list of the glyphs I think I'm going to need. I'm going to plug that in here and have it generate the things that I need. I think I've just realized the problem I had when loading stuff. Let's try this. Okay, if I go over to main screen, is that catching that? No, it is not. Just a sec. This, yeah, that's not quite displaying right either. This is a fantasy writing system that I built called Ashwadi. It's based off the shapes of Kufic Arabic. It still looks a little too Arabic to me, and I've been trying to change shapes to make it work better. The 1191 glyphs to create are going to be based on the shapes of Ndebe, which I can show you here. There. These are the shapes that she's created here. I'm going to have to generate each one of those as a shape and then put it into the system, and then go and build the glyphs that combine them all. And I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, to be honest. There's a couple of different techniques. There's the correct way to do it, which I'm definitely not going to be doing. I don't understand all the ramifications of using anchors and pulling parts in and then telling everything how it works. I'd like to evolve to that, but I'm still working on it. There's a really silly cheat you can do in some cases where you simply adjust the spacing of things so it's in the wrong position, but when you type it, it comes out in the right position. And then there is generating the glyphs and using Adobe OpenType fonts to point to the right glyphs. And that's what I'm going to do. No, I haven't created a single glyph for Ndebe yet. I haven't drawn a single line or anything. I'm going to do that, but I haven't done it yet. You can see on the chart there, it's not complex shapes. It's pretty simple. And it's just a matter of plugging the values in there and then making sure that they display at the right font sizes clearly. One of the mistakes it's easy to make when creating a font is to make it look good at the size you're working on, and then when you look at it in, say, 12 point or 10 point or something like that, it's really not visible very well. So I like to start with a shape, get it looking right at the size that I'm working on, and then go check it from time to time to make sure it works well at smaller sizes. That's a matter of the proportion of the widths of the lines to the lengths of the lines and things like that. It's more complex than that because I don't know if people realize this, but when you type in a sentence in any font, it's not just like it takes a U shape and puts a U shape on screen. Every single letter that you type is its own separate little vector drawing. That's why you can scale them so easily. So the letter U, whether it's capital or lowercase or whatever, for instance, is a set of instructions to draw a shape of the letter in that particular font style from a starting point and draw the whole shape. And it's so well coded at such a low level, I guess, that as you type, it's generating all these images and keeping them all in the computer's memory according to all these shapes. And I find it fascinating that it works as fast as it does. I have to assume it's very low-level code that is at the heart of rendering a font. But every one is a vector drawing. So if you got a page of text, it's, 550 or whatever letters there are on the screen, little vector drawings. So my interest in this is that I can help somebody with a project that looks like it could use the help, and maybe I can help her introduce her system to a wider audience of people that speak Igbo and give them another tool to help use their language. And that's a great thing to be able to do, in my opinion. Which glyphs? You mean the ones in the Ashwadi thing there that I just had on screen? Just a sec. Okay, so you can see that here is a single glyph, and there's a point here which is 0, 0, and otherwise it's basically a graph with a set of instructions on what the curve should be at, what the angles for everything is, and therefore how the shape is defined. So in the writing system that I created this here, this is the symbol for the number 6, which I can see at the top of the screen there, and every glyph has to be defined that way. And there's other factors like the maximum height it can be, the maximum it can go below 0, and things like that. And you have to define all those things as well. I'm going with the defaults for a typical font at the moment when I go to create Ndebe, which I should probably start doing. And I will apologize for how quiet and slow this might be as a process. I'm happy to talk while I'm doing it because I think this stuff is important. And if there are any experts in FontLab Studio 7 who happen to be here, Please don't cringe too much as I make mistakes. My good friend Actual Kevin here of 40 years acquaintance, I think, has been pretty much helping me along here with these questions. But yeah, you are kind of hogging the chat. If anybody's got any questions, I can see there's some other people there listening. Feel free to ask a question. I'll be happy to try and answer. Up until this point, I've just been doing Twitch with games, and I'm terrible at paying attention to chat. So if you hear this little bink sound in the background, that's a script I've got running to remind me that somebody said something, because otherwise I tend not to look. So let's see. The first thing I need to do is basically draw. I need to switch screens here. Basically, try drawing one single glyph of one of the consonant shapes here. Let's try. I'm going to have to do them all eventually. So if you look on this chart under consonant bodies, it might look a little confusing. Inside of Igbo, there is some sort of association with the sounds, and I don't speak Igbo, so I don't know what the association is, but Lotanna said she'd studied this and looked for it, and that this system makes sense. So in order to create the glyph for a consonant, you're going to use the stem on the left-hand side, and then the radical that's across the top of the consonant bodies, and those two get attached together. Then the vowel is drawn from the shape and the vowel markers up top there. Now, excuse me, it's probably not that clear, but in the vowel markers we have A, E, I, O, U, and then we have E with a dot on the left, I with a dot, O with a dot, and U with a dot. And I'm not sure what the difference is in the sounds, but those are distinct vowels. It's like if English had a different symbol for the E in pet and the E in Peter, the first E. So or E. They're distinct sounds. And then in Igbo, you can also use a nasal as a vowel, which is very odd to speakers of European languages, but apparently is possible in Igbo. So there's a vowel symbol for that too, N or M. I presume there's a rule in there for which way it sounds when it's being used. And I'm going to have to create a version of this and then run it past Lotanna and get her to tell me what doesn't work or what does work, and then refine it. So it's probably going to be a while working on this, and it's probably going to be multiple iterations to get it right. However, you take a stem, you put a radical on it, and then you add a vowel to it. To begin with, I'm going to take the appropriate stem and put the radical on it and make that as an individual glyph. So if I look on that chart there, on the second row from the bottom, on the left-hand side, we have S, which will consist of that upside-down L shape with an extra line, and then the hook with a line off to the right at an angle from the top combined. So if I click here, I said if I click here, excuse me, coffee is not doing it. Well, coffee is doing it, but water is needed. Now, when you create a font, there's all sorts of complex shapes and things like that that you can use, but I'm going to stick with pretty simple shapes and try and give myself enough allowance here. Let's see what it says under font info. Oh, you're not on the right screen there. There. Yes, kind of a trim carpenter, sure. Where are the parameters? That's probably what I want. No, that's not the parameters. Family dimensions. Okay, so safe top is 750, descender is minus 250. Okay, so if we look on this here, oh, I've got to be able to zoom that in so that it's, no, I want that there. View, zoom out. That gonna work better? So essentially when you create a glyph, it's a line drawing, a vector drawing. It has an assumed maximum height, which you can change, but a lot of font software hardwires the size of the letters, which is lazy programming, in my opinion, on the part of the people that are creating the software, but that's what happens. A lot of, like, you know, not to pick anyone in particular, so Word or OpenOffice or something like that may have some sort of restrictions put into where they're going to draw a letter when you do it. And therefore there's a sort of safe zone range where you shouldn't exceed it. So this particular default is set to have the bottom of it be at minus 250. That's the zero line there. I hope you can see my cursor. Oh, maybe you can't. Oh, no, you can there. It's off camera. Let me move this over here more and shorten the window up a bit. There. Okay, so the bottom of a letter should not go below minus 250, and the top of a letter should not go above 750, which is right in here. And that way you should have a margin of safety so that when you write a second line, it doesn't overlap the line above it. So initially we're just going to build that shape using squares, and I think it should probably actually be fairly narrow just to make sure. So I will go down to 200 and raise that up to, no, you're selecting everything. Why is it doing that? Like I said, I'm also hampered by the fact that I'm using new software here and there's all sorts of permutations to it. That should not be doing that. I don't know about this version yet because I haven't come across it, but the previous version of the software was complex enough and annoying enough in some ways, very capable and easy to use, but annoying, that it had two separate right-click menus. And I could never figure out why one would come up sometimes and one would come up the other. This appears to have hardwired that shape entirely, and it shouldn't have. There we go. That's what it was. I had the wrong cursor. So what we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit of room to create the vowel shape in, and I'm just going to make it out of boxes to begin with. Probably out about there. No. And another one down like that. Now if I go back here and look at the chart, those are pretty close. They should have rounded ends though. So we'll go back to here, and try Drop a couple of circles on here. Come on. Cancel. I want to get the rounded shape on there, and normally I could just drag a circle, create a circle of the appropriate size, grab it, and move it over top like that, and copy it, paste it, drop another one there, paste it, drag another one there, and then we can join these together like that. And we want to join those. That didn't work. Why? Oh, they didn't overlap. There. There. Okay, so we have a rough shape for the stem that was on the left there. And if I go back over here, it's just a line down and a hook off at 45 degrees. I had a whole pile of things I was going to get set up for this, and one of them was an easy way to switch back and forth, which I have, and which I didn't set up. Go figure. So we want a shape about like that. Then we want one at 45 degrees off that. And where is my tool for adjusting that angle? There should be a pop-up of tools here. Oh man. The software is brilliant stuff, and I really appreciate it, but they've moved everything on me, and the previous version of this software had a little pop-up toolbar, which doesn't seem to be showing up here. Sidebar, text bar, glyphs, property, yep. But I'm not seeing my tools. Let's see. You'd think it'd be under show. Tools. No. Look at the menu on this thing. And each one of those has something underneath it. No, didn't need that. Okay. Well, we can cheat. There ought to be a way to rotate this thing, though, which is what I wanted to do. Heavy failure here. Sorry, folks. Like I said, it's a matter of finding the things. And I had them all before. See, what does it need a scoreboard for? Show handles, show coordinates, curvature. No, I want my tools. Where's my tools? There's a toolbar over here, but I don't see the one for changing the angle on something. There used to be a rotate command where you could just take it and transform. Yeah, see, that isn't doing it either. Rotational angle. No, that didn't work. No, that's not working either. Unfortunately, I had to switch my font software because Apple updated the Mac OS to go from 32 to 64-bit, and the old version of FontLab Studio that I was using was only 32-bit, and they were going to update it to 64-bit because they'd already moved to version 6, and then version 7 was coming out. So I upgraded to version 7, but this should be a simple operation. How would I summarize this? It's going to be a matter of plugging values in and creating glyphs and everything else until I have a working system. The first step is to create the glyphs and make sure that they're visible at different sizes. Then to generate all of the glyphs. Then the next one is to do the font scripting to ensure that when you hit a particular keyboard combination, you get the glyph that you want. In the case of Igbo, it's not just a matter of indicating which letters you want to spell a word with, but you also have to indicate the tone. So I'm going to use the default glyph without entering a key for tone as the mid-tone, and then the acute accent for high tone and the grave accent for falling tone. So if you were typing in the word ashia, you would type in and then if it has a tone other than mid, one of the other two keys, grave or acute, and then shia, well, she and the appropriate tone, and and the appropriate tone. Again, as a non-tone language speaker, it's hard to keep all this stuff straight. But like I said, it's going to be a little awkward to enter text, but it'll be possible. And right now it isn't possible at all unless you handwrite in this system. So I was initially worried that this was going to prove to be extremely dull to watch. So, I mean, it's a matter of do people have questions and can I answer them, and talking about things in the meantime. I'm not sure I understand your question. Lotanna has created a system for writing her language that indicates the tones. The current Latin English alphabet way of writing Igbo does not include indication of tones, or if it does, it's so irritating most people don't bother. So that means that they're writing their language, but they're not writing it very clearly. People are going to have to guess as to the interpretation of what they meant. So her glyphs, these ones here, are based, as far as I can see anyway, based on the shapes of the historical Igbo art that was used in this symbolic system that they had called Insibidi, if I'm saying it right. It looks like it's based on that anyway. They're simple line drawings. It's been around for a long time. It's simple shapes. It looks to me like she's taken shapes from that and evolved this system, which is really cool. So I just have to build those here. If I can get this shape right here, then I will have one letter. I can then take this same shape that I've built here with the I'll go back to the main screen here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. Yes. This shape here is the basic shape for each of these letters across here. So that shape there with this hook shape, if I can get it working right, is the letter S. With this H sort of shape combined with that, it's the letter T. With this loop, it's F in the Anambra dialect and P in the Owieri dialect, and I'm not sure what it is in the Ebonyi dialect. I got to clarify that. So in Anambra, if they say fa, in Owieri they say pa, in Ebonyi they say one of the two probably, and those are the three main dialects as I understand it. There are, like I said, I think a dozen dialects that are fairly large. There are probably variations on these things. I've summarized the stuff. I've gone through entries on Igbo to try and understand how it works and to see something about the phonology of it. But if I was creating a writing system for Igbo, I would have to intensively study the phonology and the morphology of the language to try and figure out how to do it. But I don't have to do that because Lotanna's done that, and she's created this system and she speaks the language. So that means that I can skip that whole step. That still means I need to know some basic stuff about the language, which I am, trying to pick up on as quickly as possible. But contour, I could probably do it that way. But there's still lots to figure out. Convert, no. Coordinates, no. Why did they move everything? There should also be under contour maybe it's under glyph now. A rotate 180 degrees. I rotated that 45, but there should be a flip horizontally, and I don't see it here unless it's line right, no, line top, line bottom, line left, vertical flip, horizontal flip. That'll do. So we're basically just going to do that and join those together. And that's ugly, but it'll do for now. I can fix it later. And of course, all of this stuff is going to be at very small size by the time you see it. Now, when I go back to here and look at the chart, that should actually be shorter and combined underneath. So let's bring that down to around there, and then drag this out a little further. So I don't know how much sense this is making to people, but the idea is to make a working system that you can use to enter characters. Now that should be lowercase s. If I can get my preview screen up here. Honestly, I had figured out all of the stuff that I was doing with this previously, and I had all the screens and everything, and I knew where to do things, and now it's like I'm faced with a brand new piece of software I've never seen. It's really quite annoying, actually. Tools. Yeah, I get very focused on building things. being fascinated with how writing systems work, I like building the glyphs and making a system that works and things like that. When playing No Man's Sky, which is what I've been twitching before this, yes, I focused on base building. I love doing that. That's fascinating to put things together. So it's some of the same element, I guess. See, that's not giving me either scripts. No, that's the wrong type of script. Yeah, I'm sorry that this is lagging here because I'm just not doing things efficiently. That was one of the things I was looking for. I don't know why that isn't up by default, but there you go. Variations, features. No, we wanted features. Filter, pairs and phrases. No. See, they've moved that again too. Get rid of this for the moment. And this, because it's irrelevant. Okay. Where is my kerning? No. Pairs? No. Metrics. Gallery. Layers. They've added so much stuff in here. Okay, so that is a preview of what this would look like. It's not exactly the screen I wanted. Oh. Is that doing it weirdly? That's done something strange with the spacing of this too. That's not def, not def. Weird. Okay, that's better. So that's beginning, because I'm going to have to change a pile of stuff here, but that's roughly the shape for the letter S twice. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. So if we go back here, that's a preview of how this looks when it's filled in. I got to refine the shape some more, but that's the basic idea anyway. So now with that, I can then go and take the stem part of it and plug that into T. I've got to make some of these signs, but well, if you understand the system, that is SA. Okay, so like I said, it's a syllabary, so that means that each sign, well, actually that's not SA, that's the S part of SA. So that would be basically the letter S, but you're never going to type just S. When I write the scripting for this, just hitting a consonant other than M, which can appear on its own apparently, is not going to produce anything until you type a vowel in. And then after that, it'll produce the vowel. So if we go back over here to the chart, up top you see the vowel markers. There's 3 of them for each of the vowels. That's for the high, mid, and low tones. So no, it takes a stem shape plus a radical to produce S, but you're not going to type in 2 glyphs. You're going to hit S, and the system is going to know you mean this symbol here, and then you're going to type a vowel, and it's going to put the vowel on top of it. So if you look on the chart here on the top left-hand side of vowel markers, you'll see A is a horizontal line with a diagonal line off to the right and a dot. So when you come back here, there's going to be a diagonal line there and a dot on top of this symbol, and that will mean that that represents the symbol SA. What you'll type in to get that is SA, and it will show the 2 things put together, so to speak. It's going to take a lot of plugging away to build all of those, but that's how that's going to work. I don't know if I can. I can't show you that until I've done more stuff. Yeah, that's the only way I can do it. When you have a language and writing system fully supported by the tech industry, that usually means that it has been given a definition inside of Unicode by the Unicode Consortium. They're very careful about it. What it really means is that there is a thing called Unicode, which contains characters for, well, spaces for the characters for all of the writing systems that Unicode's supporting. And their idea is to try and support all of the world's writing systems. They have to add in each writing system one after another, and that involves somebody sitting down and studying it to make sure that they've defined it right and they're not wasting space inside of Unicode and things like that. That's the first part, if it has a Unicode definition. The reason that's important is because people who write software, your text editor on your phone, they basically just say, okay, well, we're supporting Unicode, and they include that in as part of the program. If that's the case, then any characters which are contained inside of Unicode can be used on screen. Anything that isn't there generally can't be. The second part is to have a font, and the font is defined in terms of its relationship to Unicode. Either it uses the existing spots located in Unicode and says that's where I'm putting this glyph, or it uses something called the private use area. So for something like this, although it's transparent to me, I'm not actually doing anything with it, the font software is going to be saying, well, this glyph doesn't have a Unicode ID, so we're going to plug it into the public use area or private use area. That's transparent to anybody using things. It's just a technical aspect of the way fonts are created. The next element is somebody builds a font. Now, I told Lotanna was already talking to the Unicode people. I told her she should also consider approaching Google's Noto font program, because they're trying to build a working font for each one of the world's writing systems, more or less independent of Unicode. I don't know if that puts them in competition with Unicode in any way, or in cooperation or whatever. I don't know, but they're building working fonts for things like that. Noto, yeah. There's hundreds of Noto fonts for all sorts of languages around the world. It's a font project by Google to try and extend communicability for various languages around the world, which is admirable. This doesn't prevent anybody else from creating a font for a given language. That's back on getting involved in the Unicode standard and things like that. Getting accepted into Unicode is a very, very long process. And it doesn't mean that the Unicode people are producing a version of your script either. It just means that they've reserved a spot for people to plug in a version of your script, which you do by creating a font that uses Unicode as a relationship for where the characters are stored. It's all like really complex stuff. I've been trying to figure it out, and there's just a ton to learn. Then in the interim, well, no, it's more like they're defining the ISO definition of every writing system in the world. They're giving a standard. The Unicode is a standard after a fashion, and reserving spots for it. I guess mathematically there's probably a maximum extension, or a maximum number of spots that Unicode can support of some sort, and they're being very careful to make sure they don't misuse the space they've got, I guess, in preparation for being able to add more systems down the road. Yes, they manage the tablets you carve your commandments onto. Yep, they tell you what characters you can use for commandments, basically. Well, again, you can use anything you want. So what this will be when it's done is sort of an interim solution between being fully supported in Unicode, from having Noto produce a professional version of the font, stuff like that. This will be an interim thing that people can use if they want to write something in Ndebe. That's it in a nutshell. Whether or not it's friendly for them to use, whether or not people adopt it, that's really on Lotanna and her pursuing this issue, and on people as to whether or not they like it. I mean, I'm not an Igbo speaker. I've never had to type in Igbo using the Latin characters and gone, wow, I really wish this was easier, or I wish I could indicate the tone on a word. Why can't I do that? There's been a couple of different solutions for writing Igbo that people have tried in the past. They've all been imposed from outside when it was colonially controlled, I guess. And I think there's a certain amount of resentment and dissatisfaction over that, but it's what they have. English is apparently the national language of Nigeria, presumably because they have like 50 of their own languages, and it's the common denominator that they inherited from being controlled by Britain at one point. I don't understand all the politics of that. I don't know what people feel about that. Maybe they're fine with that. Maybe they hate it. I don't know. But I can see the appeal to having a writing system created by somebody who is part of the culture and speaks the language and understands the issues far better than I do. I just want to facilitate that. I want to see if I can make something that's useful. I tried the same thing before. I'm involved with a project to create a writing system for a language called Afaka in, I think it's in Suriname. It's a African language that still has a fair number of speakers, but it came from Africa to South America because of the slave trade, and it has its own writing system that somebody built, but there's no font for it. And when I heard about that, I got involved with that if I could. I volunteered to help with that. But that's still a process that's ongoing, so I haven't heard anything back from them about that. I should give a plug to Tim Brooks and his Endangered Languages project, too. He goes, basically travels all over the world and does wood carvings of threatened writing systems, and tries to promote the use of those writing systems and stuff like that. And excuse me again, it's very dry in here. I got involved with Afaka through following Tim Brooks on Facebook. So if there's people here that came here through Tim publicizing things, thanks, Tim. The whole issue to me is that languages are important. Languages reflect the culture of the people that speak the language. They represent a different view on how humans interact with the world. And it's not that any one language is any better than any other, or that you can say something in one language that you can't say in another. That's not true. But the way in which you interact with the world psychologically is, I think, potentially affected by the language that you're thinking and talking at the time. And there's some debate over that. There's a thing called the Sapir Wharf hypothesis, I think, that has, mostly been debunked, but I don't know why or how. But it's supposed to be that language affects the way you interact with the world and the way you think and things like that. I don't think there's any doubt that language helps preserve culture, and the more the more languages that die off, the more aspects of human culture we lose. So we're losing something like 100 languages a year, I think. I mean, it's a vague figure, but we're regularly losing the last speaker of some obscure language somewhere in the world. And it's getting to be narrower and narrower and narrower as a field of potential languages that people could speak. And it's a tragedy to me every time we lose one of those. It might be survival of the fittest or whatever, but it's too bad when that happens. It is, and there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, like I said, 30 years ago, Oh, hello, Sugabelli. It first came to my attention when I was taking linguistics 30 years ago that there were all these indigenous languages in British Columbia that were threatened. What was it? I think Southern Kwakiutl, which is probably said Kwagul, had 2 speakers, both of whom were over 70. And that was in 1978, 79. So I'm sure they've passed away by now, long since. And they were the last 2 speakers of that language that were fluent in it, right? That was their first language. That's a tragedy. That's a whole aspect of that one indigenous culture that's been lost to a certain degree. I mean, language isn't the only thing that preserves a culture, but it's probably the main tool. Language and music, I would think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is all recorded. It'll be available after the broadcast is done on Twitch for a certain amount of time, and I will take it and I will upload it to YouTube as well, where it should stay permanently. I can send you the links for that if you want. So the whole aspect of language preservation and giving people a writing system that has been created by somebody who's in that culture and speaks that language, that's really important to me. The indigenous peoples here in BC don't have a writing system that reflects their culture. As far as I know, anyway. I don't think anybody's tried to evolve one, which is too bad. The languages are really incredibly complex. They're some of the most complex and involved and unique languages in the world, and I hate to think that they're going to die out because we, as the dominant English-speaking culture here in Canada, have ignored and in some cases actively attempted to destroy the use of those languages. That's just unforgivable. So when I came across this post in our Neography from Lotanna about this, it's like, oh, this is perfect. I got to help with this if I can. Oh, sure. As I was saying earlier, if you go back and watch the video later on, Apple updated from 32 to 64-bit, and that's cool, no problem. When I updated that, I had to update the font software, which I luckily had the money for. But now they've moved everything. This software, which was already the most complex thing I'd ever done, I think one of the analogies I had earlier was it felt like doing brain surgery while trying to fly a 747, has gotten even more complex. So this is all I've created at the moment. I've just been talking. It's made more difficult by the fact that I need to keep moving things. A little higher and a little farther to the right. Yeah, I was just looking at the shapes here and the sizes. Yes, it should be higher up so that it's not in conflict with the stuff on this. Excuse me. I've got the window shut in here. I've got the window shut in here to cut down on construction noises from outside, and that means it's really dry in here. Yep. All this stuff is easily resizable and movable. I can just drag stuff if I want, right? Oh, that's not working quite right. Right. You missed that part there too, but the first step in doing this sort of thing is to come up with a rough shape and then make sure that it's displayable at various sizes, and I haven't gotten to that point yet here. It's easy to design for the size that I'm showing here and say, okay, well, that looks good. And then when you suddenly try and run it as a 12-point font, it's unreadable because everything's too close. I will say that the initial design here is very conducive to being translated because it's using thin lines with some decent spacing between them. And I think that's going to make it easier to create the glyphs in the end. And it should mean that it displays a little bit better or more easily at different sizes as well. I'm just, whenever you build something like these things, it's extremely iterative. I was showing earlier a writing system called Ashwadi that I made for one of the fantasy languages I was working on creating. Ashwadi has gone through, I think, 197 revisions or something like that. I mean, it's one of the ones I worked on the most, but that's 197 versions of me saying, hey, this is great, what do I need to change? Oh, I should change this, that means this, this, and this should change. Then you test it and that needs to be changed, and then I save it as a new version and go on. So whatever it looks like now is not what it's probably going to look like in the end at all. Amongst other things, this shape here, when it comes down to here, should probably be a curve up to there, and the end of this should be rounded like it is up here, because the artwork that you've got on the original chart there looks like it's got nicely rounded ends on things, and I would like to reflect what you did and make that first. After that, once there's a working version of that, it's possible to make all sorts of different styles of like you could make a serif version of this or something if you wanted to. But to begin with, I want to try and make what you made in the original hand-drawn thing there. So, well, see, doing a little car show of some of my other work. Yeah, I tried to call one up there and it didn't work very well. I'll bring back, where was it here? Recent. Like I said, this is Ashwadi. I don't think I can enter text here, can I? Yes, I can. So you can see that this one, what I just typed in there was nonsense words, sashim. It changes the glyphs that are being used. Ignore the fact that it changes the sizes. That's just this thing, the preview window showing it at the most advantageous size. If I was to use what's a suitable sort of word that would be in Ashwadi, that's actually a word. There's a type of Jewish sect or something called the Ashkenazi. That's the right sort of structure. Ashkenazi. N-A-Z-I. Okay, so the sizes are changing because it's displaying the optimum thing, but this is a writing system that takes everything as letters but groups them together as syllables. Let's try looking for... Yeah, man. Yeah, well, only if the open dialog actually opens up. Come on, open font. Here, I'll close Ashwati. There we go. Okay. Sorry, let me find the right folder here. Where is it? Come on. I've done too many of these things. A lot of these haven't gotten very far. New demotic. Where's the latest version? See, this one's already up to version 1.9. Oh, 1.95 there. See if this opens properly. Okay, this was me playing around with in ancient Egypt there was hieroglyphics, then there was a writing system called hieratic, and there was another one called demotic, and I found myself wondering, those all died out. They stopped being used. They got replaced by Greek and Latin. What would happen if those had evolved to the modern day? What would they look like? So this is me taking the symbols of hieratic and demotic Egyptian and turning them into the writing system. And it's the same sort of thing. It's based on simplified shapes of hieroglyphics and then turning that into a writing system. Let's see if it'll work here in the preview window. So ancient Egyptian used to take names and put them inside a looped shape like this called the cartouche. So that is Igbo, I-G-B-O, inside of a cartouche. That's something I built into this, right? So cartouche, yes. It's part of ancient Egyptian. When they originally deciphered ancient Egyptian, they did so because of the cartouche shapes, because they were used to write the names of the kings and queens. And when they first went to decipher it, they didn't know if it was one shape was one word, or if it was an alphabet type writing system or whatever. But somebody sat down, a Frenchman named Champollion, sat down and looked at the cartouche ones that were marked aside and thought, I wonder if this particular one might be Ramses. There's certain symbols in there. Can I figure out what might be? If this symbol meant an R and this one was an A and this one was an M, would it look right? Is there two symbols that might be S's? And it's very clever, but he figured out how to read the basic shapes from that. Oh, yes, sure. Yes. Volunteer to be that guy. Thank you. If anybody's watching this, if you want to do me a real big favor, go on to Twitch and make sure you hit follow. The next stage for me in terms of evolving my stuff on Twitch is to reach affiliate. I'll get that when I get to 50 followers, and I'm really close. So if you can follow, that would be awesome. Oh, I'm 3 now? Good. Cool. I've already got some from this project, and to anybody who followed, I'm very thankful. Thank you very much. So these are fonts that I played around with creating. there's another 30 or 40 that I built fragments of and things like that. I'm not as knowledgeable as I want to be. There's so much in this stuff to learn still. It's very dry for a lot of people. It's fascinating for me. So I'm in the right place and I have the right tools, and it's just a matter of finding the time and applying my nose to the grindstone to pick up all the details on how this stuff works. So I'm really happy to work on something like this because it could have the potential to help millions of people. How often in your life do you have the potential to do that? Not very often. And I certainly haven't. So if it does, that's awesome. If it doesn't, well, then I spent time doing something fascinating to me anyway. So it's win all around. Yes, I used to have hair. I had hair down to about here. Not anymore. Oh, I thought it was more than that. I thought it was 45 million. Okay. Well, between 18 and 30, depending on how you count it, sure. I would think that you would count speakers of the language, regardless of whether or not they're inside Nigeria. But millions of people who have an inadequate way to write their language, and then you go and create a good way to write it. So, I mean, I'm really hoping that we can build something that we can that you can use to help you promote Ndebe with Igbo speakers. Yes, I was in the military. I was a radio operator. I was in the Canadian Special Service Force, headquarters and signal squadron. It was fun. Never went overseas, never went to war, so I got to do all the training for it and communications and stuff like that, and luckily I never had to experience that because I really would not wanted to have done it. I did volunteer for peacekeeping duty and never got a chance to do it, unfortunately. Oh, well, thank you, whoever just followed. Oh, Mrs. Actual Kevin. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Yes. He wants me to tell all these stories. It's okay. If you guys come back later when I'm working on this some more, then I can tell those stories then, too. The doing these Twitch broadcasts, this is the first time I've done a creative one. So all my ones before this, all my Twitch broadcasts before this have been playing a game called No Man's Sky, which is enormous fun, and it's fun to broadcast about and things like that, but it's not the same thing, really. And this is reaching out to a whole different group of people, too, which is kind of cool. So I will evolve this a bit more. I'm going to be doing more of these, of course, because I've made one glyph. But the process will maybe get a little bit smoother down the road too. Like I said, I'm adapting to a new version of the software where they moved everything. It's brilliant software, and I really like it, and I'm glad I got it and everything. But it's really kind of overwhelming at times too. So I'm a little awkward with using it right now. I will get more of this done though, and the next time I come back there'll be more to show. Software is called FontLab Studio 7. There's a few different programs that are at basically the cutting edge for font software, and this one just came out maybe a month and a half ago. FontLab Studio 7, yeah, it's extremely powerful. It has, well, like I said, the earlier version of this I had was 5, and it had a 1,000-page manual, 1,000-page PDF. Made it almost impossible to find anything. And the other aspect of all the, I don't know what the size of the one is for this, because they've switched it to being a website, so the help is all on a website now, so you can't really say how many pages is it. It's just everything's linked to everything. There is so much stuff in this program that I have only just barely scratched the surface of. If I knew the software better, I could probably have been cutting your graphics from the ndebe.org website and pulling them out and then having it trace them and draw it all for me, but I don't know how to do that yet. No, I've been using this font software, version 5 anyway, for maybe 2-3 years. Before that, I used a more limited program for a year or two, and then before that, a very limited one before that. I think I've probably been playing with fonts for 3 or 4 years now. And it's fascinating, but there's so much to it. It's ridiculous. And it's very badly documented, I hate to say. It might be me just not being able to find the documents, but a lot of them assume you already understand these 500 things, and now we can talk about the specific instance of things. Well, I don't know those 500 things, so whenever I'm using this software, I'm often off to the web to search up a particular technical term and find out what they mean, so I can figure out what the software means, and then I have to search the technical terms that describe that technical term. It's horrendous. If you take Photoshop as being the state of the art for photographic manipulation, which I'm sure it probably is, although I've been playing with one called Affinity, which is nice too, then FontLab is right up there. I don't know what other software really compares to it. There's one called Glyphs, which is pretty good. And I almost went with Glyphs, but then the upgrade price from FontLab Studio 5 to 7 was less than the cost of Glyphs. And I thought, well, I know 5. It shouldn't be that hard to adapt, right? But yeah, this is cutting edge. Yeah, I don't think you can get anything better than this. I'm not being supported by FontLab Studio 7 in any way. I just really think that this is probably the best software that you could get, and luckily I had the money to upgrade. I had the money to upgrade because people donated to my Patreon. So let me plug myself here for a second. Just a second here. I have to configure something. Yes, I have to configure something here in my OBS that has failed. So I'll be back in just a second, but I have to switch screens here, so there'll be no audio until I plug. There, can you hear me now? Okay, right. Basically, each screen that you see up here is defined in the OBS software I'm using, and I defined the page, and I put the camera that's showing me on it, and I put the overlay on it, and I neglected to actually add the microphone sound. So kind of hard to hear when there's no thing in OBS saying, oh, I should check the mic. So now that's there. So if you want to help support me, if you go to my Patreon at that address there, Patreon, National Neographics, you can support me there for $1. And anything I post on any of the new fonts that I create and stuff like that, I add there. I will post Ndebe there when there's a working version of it. Of course, it won't be behind a paywall. It'll be available to anybody. And when I update a font, I post an update to it there. And if I've got documentation on it, I post the documentation on it. Obviously, if you want to watch me on Twitch, I'm on Twitch as That Font Guy. And if you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, I am also there as That Font Guy. I am not sufficiently advanced in my progress yet as a Twitch broadcaster or a YouTube broadcaster that I'm making any money off of it. So supporting me on Patreon for $1, that's really appreciated. So the process here is to iterate through doing each of these things. I'll have to make each of these symbols. If you go over here, I have a text list of the glyphs that I'm going to need. At some point, I will be plugging that in here, and it will make a blank glyph for each of the consonants and vowels. And then I can go and put some code in to tack those together so that you can type stuff in. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm more relaxed than I was when I started. And I know you said not to plug you, Actual Kevin, but the reason that I'm doing Twitch is because Actual Kevin convinced me I should do it, and the reason I'm playing No Man's Sky is because he convinced me I should try No Man's Sky, and here we go. Now I'm doing this, which is something I've been doing all along. So this is going to be good. So I've got to take these and plug them in and create the blank glyphs, and then create the artwork that goes in there and dump all those in there, and then put some scripting in there. And you can see that that is not a throw you under the bus. Yeah, right. You can see that's not a quick process. It's going to take a while. But I will definitely do more Twitch broadcasts to let people see the state of things here, and I will have to work on some of this offline to get it done, because I'm not enough of a Twitch broadcaster to be able to multitask building this and talking about it at the same time, I think. Anyway, it's a fascinating project. I'm really looking forward to getting it working. And that's not true. I can multitask sometimes, but I do tend to get very focused on what I'm doing. Extremely focused on what I'm doing. To the point that last night when I was going to sleep, I was trying to go to sleep, and I was also had my brain running at like 80 miles an hour saying, I could just use spacing to put the glyphs together, or I could actually generate each glyph, or I could finally try and tackle how anchors work and anchor it all together. And that is, thank you. Thank you very much. That doesn't actually aid the sleeping process at all. So, it's going to be interesting. I will try and get as much done as I can before the next broadcast comes along, but and try and publicize things as well. Just so you know, Sugabelli, I sent a message off to a guy named Tim Brooks at I think it's called the Endangered Languages Initiative. And he's asked to publicize, or he's offered to publicize this as well. So, oh, you know Tim? Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, I know him because I was trying to help him with a language called Afaka in, I think it's Suriname. And I joined the group for doing that and said, well, when you guys have a working set of glyphs, I'll build the font for it if you want. And I haven't heard back from them. So a Patreon subscription alert? I didn't know you could do that. Yes, well, he got back to me right away and said, oh yeah, done. I will publicize that. So, yeah, he seems really neat. I really like him. I've talked to him once or twice when we were talking about Afaka. So I'm glad to hear he's interested in Ndebe. Am I saying that right? Is it Ndebe or Ndebe? Okay, well, yeah, sure. I don't have that many Patreon subscriptions. It never came up. Okay, sure. But high tones. Ndebe? I really don't get tone languages. I'd love to, but I don't. You said that there's oh, okay. So Ndebe as opposed to Ndebe as opposed to Ndebe? Like it's just literally higher and lower and mid-register? Do, re, mi? Okay. Cool. Low, mid, high. Right. Okay, cool. It's... You speak Igbo, you speak English, it's easy for you. But as an English speaker, trying to get used to the idea of tones is really hard. It's just hard to incorporate that into your thinking as being as distinct as saying fa versus pa. And I mean, it is. It's just one more element of defining information in a language, but it's really hard to adapt to. So you got the advantage there, definitely. You'd probably have an easier time learning something like Mandarin. The only thing I can say in Mandarin, and hopefully I've got this right, is 我是上海人, which is I'm a man from Shanghai, which is not true. Never been there. But I think I got the tones right on that. Mandarin has 5 tones. Cantonese has 8, I think. Right. Right, and entering and yelling at someone are in no way related to each other. They just happen to have the same sound, and the difference is the tone. Be the same as English with ball and back. They have no relationship to each other. It's just that the last syllable is a K or an L, the last consonant, sorry. And it's hard for a non-tone speaker to even think of tone as having equal value in defining a word or a syllable as the consonant or the vowel. Tone languages, there's a lot of them around the world. I think Swedish actually has some words that have different meaning in a high tone as opposed to a regular tone, and I think it's the only language. Lithuanian might too. I think it's the only language in Europe that has that, but they never really evolved there. But in Africa definitely, and in Asia definitely, there's lots of tone languages. But to us poor Westerners, it's just really a foreign concept to try and adapt to. I think they do. I could be wrong. And it's not that they have a full tone system. I think in Swedish it's Swedish. There's some words, like maybe a handful, where you only say it in a high tone as opposed to the regular tone for everything else. And I could be wrong on that, but that they have, when said in a higher pitched voice or whatever, they have a specific meaning and usage that they don't if you say the same word in a regular usage. And I think the same thing might be true of Lithuanian, but I really don't know. I don't know any Swedish or Lithuanian. I read about languages and all the unique features of them and try and absorb as much as I can, and that's sort of in the back of my mind that Swedish, somebody pointed out that there was 1 or 2 words that were like that. They're not tone languages. I don't think there are any European tone languages. There are, I think, some tone languages in Central or South America. Oh, good question. Yeah. Very good question, actually. I mean, maybe Twitch isn't that common a thing. I will say that I posted on Reddit, the Reddit subreddits for Africa and Nigeria, and I got a couple of people that followed because of that. I don't know if they've showed up here or not. They haven't spoken. YouTube will be good. Held a message for reason identity. Allow will post it to chat. Okay. I don't know why it held that. Anyway, Sugar Belly said, not many Nigerians on Twitch, but YouTube is pretty important. Well, forgive me, actual Kevin, I'm using OBS for Twitch, but it's just as possible to have it send it all to YouTube, is it not? I've just never done that. Right, that's what I thought, though. I thought I recalled seeing in there just a settings choice of where is it going to. I quite like Twitch. There's a lot of people on Twitch, but we do want to reach as many people as possible. Now, I will take the video from this and upload it to YouTube, so it'll be there on my channel as well. I'll do that with all of these. It'll still be on Twitch for a period of time, but yeah, Facebook, I don't know what the reach of Facebook is in Nigeria, but presumably it's pretty powerful. They've got a huge audience worldwide. And I suppose I could do sort of rolling presentations. So Facebook, it could be done on Facebook as well, right? Well, then we could look at that too. I know. I have to. I don't know why it's doing that. It says held a message for reason identity. Allow will post it to chat, which I can do, or actual Kevin can. No, I thought maybe it might be restricting it because you've mentioned Nigeria and that's narrowing down where you are, but I don't know. The auto mod that I'm using here is pretty conservative because I want to avoid people trolling and swearing and things like that, so it'll block a lot of that stuff. Yeah, I think it's something like that, which is ironic considering you might not actually be in Nigeria at the moment, right? But just mentioning a country seems a little odd. If you had typed in something that it filtered and said, that looks like an address or a phone number, I could understand blocking that. Oh, right. Okay. Yep, sure. But it's not doing it for that. It's not saying that it's offensive or something like that. It's just saying identity, which is kind of vague. Anyway, we can definitely whitelist that. Sure, yeah. I've got a lot of learning to do on how the mod systems work and how the bots work. I basically just went and I actually have 2 bots on this system here. I basically have them just there to safeguard me while I'm busy doing stuff so that we don't have anybody get offended. Yeah, I don't think it has a very good regex in it at all. And I don't know if it can be fixed or not. Yeah, sure. I'm all for that. I don't want anybody to do anything that would hazard them in any way. And there's an awful lot of people in the world, particularly on the internet, that take great joy in just annoying people, being rude to them and stuff like that. I've got no time for that. So it's been a lot of fun to talk about languages in general, and I enjoy doing that. It's been fun to talk about this project. I haven't actually got very much of it done, but it's certainly getting me more motivated to do more. But yeah, we'll fix that stuff there. Suffice it to say, you said Facebook is really big in Nigeria. Massive, I think you said. I could do the next broadcast on Facebook instead. I never really thought about not using Twitch just because I've done all my broadcasts on Twitch, but it's probably just a matter of Actually, I guess it is probably just a matter of I have a channel on YouTube already, telling OBS I want this to go to YouTube, and it'll port it there. YouTube is better because it's easier to share YouTube. Okay, sure. Lots of people using YouTube in Nigeria as well. I mean, okay, good, sure. I have branded myself as that font guy, for lack of a better name, on Patreon and Instagram and Twitch and YouTube, and I have not done so on Facebook. So broadcasting on YouTube would be much more to the point, I guess, because I've already got a YouTube channel. So I can just do a test broadcast to make sure the whole thing works, and then when that works, come back and do this on YouTube next time around, for instance. So I think I reached a lot of people. I probably could have done all the promoting for this like maybe a few days beforehand, and gotten more people, but I've never actually been there. I'm sure you have, but it got people interested. You know, and I know those words, and I can't remember. I can hear them in my head, and I can't remember the song. It got people interested. It's got some people to show up here. Just, where is my mouse? There it is. I've got two monitors here, and one monitor is showing me what's on the other monitor, so I'll go, oh, there's my mouse, and it's not the mouse. The mouse is over here, not there, and stuff like that. Yeah, we got a few people here. Right, Leonard Cohen. Okay, I'm not actually a Leonard Cohen fan, but I like that song. I've completely derailed my train of thought. I don't know what I was going to say. I had a poignant thing to mention, I thought, and then gone. We've been at it for almost 2 hours. Okay. What's coming next in this? Next is a whole pile of nose to the grindstone, cutting and pasting of things, and creating some more glyphs like this until I've got the basic structure. Then a whole pile of coding, which will also be a lot of cutting and pasting and editing. When that's done, then I will have sort of a beta version of the font, which I can then do tests on to make sure that it's not failing to put spaces in after characters and things like that. That's the thing you have to define. And then, well, basically I can hand this off for people to test it and see if it works right and see what problems there are, and then go back and, you know, iterate fixes to those things. After that, I'm not sure. After that, I can look at making it into a web font, so that it can be used in a browser. I can test seeing if it will work if it gets loaded onto a phone. The problem with it is that if it's an individual font and you put it on a communications device and you use it, the person at the other end has to have the font to see it. Unless it gets directly incorporated into somebody's software. And it isn't incorporated into anybody's software, and it probably won't be until Unicode has got there and everything. He can't send you his MailChimp to share out because I don't have a MailChimp URL yet. I have to do that. Oh, well, cool. I saw that there. I wasn't sure what area of iOS you were in, but you could write a... just a second here. I've got somebody at the door. Okay. So that was me answering the door because I've got a neighbor that's moving out and I'm getting a bookshelf from her. So if the font works the way it's supposed to, then the next thing I would hope to do would be to get it onto mobile devices, because I imagine mobile devices are more common than desktop computers or laptops in Nigeria. I don't know that, but they're pretty much ubiquitous in North America. There's a lot of people that don't have a laptop or don't have a desktop computer. I'm old enough that I function with a desktop computer, and I hate using my phone to type stuff. We have iPads, they're okay, but I don't use them. I use desktop computers. If I don't have a keyboard and a 27-inch monitor in front of me, I go a little shaky. But that's also because I'm 60, and I'm not as adapted to phones as the current generation. So the end objective, I would think, would be to build a tool that lets you enter Ndebe and read Ndebe on a phone. That might mean you've got to make your own communications tool for people to do that or something like that, which is pretty ambitious. Oh yeah, pull start. I'd like a pull start computer. Yeah. Briggs & Stratton single stroke. Oh, well, cool. Very cool. Then I'll have to hope that that works properly for that. The key thing is support for ligatures. There is a very correct way to build a font that I don't know. It relies on being part of Unicode and stuff like that too, though. There is the fast and dirty way to do things, which is ligatures. In English, in some fonts, you will see a ligature for, say, S and T. So when you type last, there will be a special version of the S and the T where the S is joined to the crossbar on the T. Or if you have a word like raffle with FFL, there'll be a special version of the F, and the L where they're all joined together. Or just FL. Those are the most common ligatures in English. You don't have to use them, but some fonts have them as a font effect, where they'll do that sort of thing. In the stuff that I'm doing, I'm abusing the ligatures concept heavily. Some of the fonts that I have here rely entirely on ligatures. And all a ligature is basically is a bit of code inside of the font that says, just a sec here, I forgot to ask, is the email app for you okay to send the ebook to? Yeah, sure. Entire syllabary with all the characters we need so you can use it as a reference to check. Sure, awesome, yes, definitely. If I don't, it should be the address that you gave me would be just fine. Yeah, that would be a terrific reference. Thank you. So a ligature is just a bit of code. That's it. It says basically, when you come across a combination of this key and that key having been hit on the keyboard together, instead of showing those two keys, show this special form that is a combination of those two things. The font I have that produces neumes, I don't know what a neume is, for Gregorian chant notation. Well, I'm not up on my Gregorian chant. Some of those glyphs require a couple of key presses depending on the results you want to end up with. That's exactly it. Yeah. So inside of that font, when you press whichever key combination, it reads that and doesn't display those keys. Instead, it displays, I guess, the neume. Is that how you say it? Neume is neume. Well, that can be written large here for something like this in Ndebe, so that when you want the end result of a stem plus a radical plus the vowel, we can have the script detect what you're typing in to get that, and then there's just a formula for doing that. You type in this key plus that key, and you get the consonant part of it and the vowel part of it, and it won't show anything until you have composed all of that together, so that it won't be possible to write just this stem and radical combination here. You don't need to see that. It doesn't exist, right? It's a syllabary. So until it has a vowel on it, we don't want to show it. Well, I can hide all that. But when you go to write an application that's going to use this, you need to make sure you've got ligatures turned on permanently, so that it will display all of those ligatures there. And then it should just be a matter of saying, use this font, and here's the path to the font, and away you go. Yes. Yep, I got it. Just got it on my Apple Watch here, so I will go and look at it in a minute. Thank you very, very much. Greatly appreciated. I want to get this working for you, so I'm going to work on the font and get it working, and I'll do more Twitch sessions to update people so they can see how it's going, and maybe we can build more publicity for the idea. But I'm really excited that you think you could build an iOS version of it. Is the iPhone and YouTube, is the iPhone fairly popular in Nigeria? Or are there a lot of people on Android? Do you think you have the capability of producing an Android version of it as well, or somebody you know that could take the same software and produce a compatible Android version? Just curious. Okay, right, good. This font, when it's done, based on the performance of my previous fonts, will be a true type font. So that's Adobe taking Microsoft standard for fonts and adding OTF scripting to it. Okay, well, thanks very much, Sugabelli. I will take a look over that. Yeah, so it's TTF, so it'll work on PC, Mac, Linux, and anything else that supports TTF. And since TrueType fonts are the standard for fonts, that probably includes just about every electronic device. Certainly it'll work on Android, I'm sure, and iOS. And for that matter, if it required an OTF font specifically instead of a TTF, that's literally just a matter of regenerating the font in the OTF format, and there shouldn't be any difference between them. I'm not actually sure what the differences are between them. I think TTF has better rendering on Microsoft products than it does on others, and OTF is pretty much the same on both, but I think that TTF is actually a little bit better for the clarity of the glyphs and things like that. They've done a lot to do that. Like I said earlier at the start of this, every glyph is a tiny little vector drawing, so it's a set of instructions for vector drawing. Yes, the hinting and everything else. Microsoft has an engine built into Windows for doing that very effectively, possibly a little bit better than Apple does. Although I'm actually really impressed with Apple's fonts too. So, anyway, I'm sorry that Sugabelli had to go there. It's been awesome to have her here. If I didn't actually say that, she's the person that invented this writing system. So, she's the lead on promoting it. I'm losing it again. Getting a little old. I forgot what I was going to say. I had a point and lost it. Yeah, the whole process to me is to build a font and then to find ways to use it. Well, the only way it can really be used effectively is if you have a writing tool that lets you enter stuff in on a phone and send that font to somebody else who can receive it. And if that means that you have to have a special Ndebe communications app, well, that's okay. That's it. Yeah, sure. Luckily, although I'm suffering from allergies and dry throat and everything else, talking doesn't require a lot of energy, which is good, because I can do a lot of talking. It's funny to realize how easy it is to talk about this stuff, and then not easy to actually go and do the stuff. But I also realized that I started the stream off. Actually, Kevin and I talked about this before I started the stream. I started the stream off in just chatting on Twitch, and the intent was to switch to creative once I started working on things, and I kind of forgot that I need to switch it. So it's still on just chatting, so just chatting about stuff is actually totally appropriate. I will have to be on creative next time and have more done and have all my tools arranged. I don't quite have all my ducks in a row when it comes to Font Lab here. But I have a good handle on what I'm doing, and now that Sugar Belly sent me the book, I'm sure that I can go through that and draw the information I need from it, which will help too. Although I think I had most of what I needed. I'm looking forward to looking at that, though. Yes. Is it that accurate? I think it's going to fall apart when I go to say some things, but having a transcript would be good. I'll have to do all that stuff there. I'll look into that too. Cold voice on silence. That's, oh, you mean talking like this with no background music or noise from a game or software or something like that? That's the best input? Good, because I've seen some transcriptions before that were, well, not that good. Okay, good, good. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Twitch doesn't keep broadcasts forever. Although maybe that'll change if I've got enough people now or something, I don't know, down the road. But YouTube does. So I will upload this to YouTube probably once the broadcast is done. And take it from there. Oh, hello! I'm going to try to say that, and I want you to not grimace or punch the walls. Eme ka onye kwelu. Oh yes, that's right. Right, I can do highlights. When you, oh good, good. I am going to post it to YouTube. You can look up That Font Guy on YouTube, and it'll be there too. Thank you for coming by the way. If correct me if I'm wrong, actual Kevin, but if I can get to affiliate status on Twitch, then some of that changes. It will keep some stuff, will it not? Yes, thanks for the plug. Yes, if you could, thank you. The next stage in Twitch is to get affiliate status, which requires 50 followers, and I'm really close, and I really appreciate that because that gets me closer to that goal. Then I have to go apply for that, and they have to say yes, and then things change. Okay, so affiliates get 90-day videos of the day. Okay, well, YouTube keeps them as long as I keep a YouTube channel going. So I'm uploading everything that I do on Twitch. Oh wow, am I at 49? Emeke. I think I screwed that up. Thank you very much for getting me to 49. Yes, if somebody here is listening to this and hasn't followed and could give me a follow to get to 50, that would be awesome. Change my title to what? What? You've said this before, Actual Kevin, and I'm sorry, not everything relies on a hat. I do have a hat. No idea where it is. I do have a cool hat. Yeah, so I thought I was going to get more done doing this rather than talking, and I've ended up talking more than doing anything else. But I have many hats. Oh, well, welcome to Twitch. Oh, auto mode has again blocked this thing. You didn't say anything wrong, but I'll read out your comment here. Actually, it looks like I can hit allow. There. It's got some weird blocking stuff here. Very bad regex on stuff. I'm interested to hear what you think about this. I mean, I've talked to Sugabelli here about this, and I've read about it and everything, but I'm obviously not Igbo, and I don't speak Igbo, as fascinating as it sounds. What do you think about this for expanding the ability of Igbo speakers to write their language properly and reflect tones and things like that? I understand that the current methods that people use using the Latin alphabet don't let you write tones, and as a result a lot of people don't write the tones, which has got to add confusion, I would think. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. Oh, and based on feedback from Sugabelli, the next broadcast might actually be on Facebook rather than, YouTube rather than on Twitch. I have a YouTube channel as well. I post the videos that I make here to there. I guess I can cut out the middleman by just posting to YouTube with the live stream the next time. I've never done a live stream on YouTube, but the process has got to be pretty much the same, I would think. So I know you just happened across this, but do you find writing Igbo on a keyboard irritating because you can't indicate tones or because it doesn't reflect the language? Right. Okay. Well, my involvement here is just to try and make a font version of the Ndebe writing system that Sugabeli has written about in her book, and then provided that works, we can yes, any type of key typing. Provided that works, then we can take it to another project she's working on, which is to produce a iOS app, I guess, for communicating using this. And she said earlier in chat, I don't know if you were here or not, but she said that the one element that was missing of that was the font. So I appear to have intersected with her at exactly the right time. I don't know what state her app is in, but and then she said that she's knows some Android engineers that would probably be able to take the same thing that she writes in iOS and translate it to Android. And it bothers me that Igbo has had a writing system that was first off from an external source. That bothers me. It should be from somebody who speaks the language and is part of the culture, in my opinion. That's the only way to get a real feel for whether or not the thing is the right solution or not, right? And second, that it bothers me that there's a huge population of people out there that can't adequately express themselves in a writing system that properly reflects their language. So when I came across her post on Reddit about the creation of Ndebe, I thought, wow, this is something I can help with. So I offered to help, and she said, yeah, sure. So here we are. Yes, good question, actual Kevin. Basically, he asked, Emekayon Yekwelu. Wow, that's a lot of syllables for my brain. What do you think would make it more efficient? Since people are going to be watching this and they can't see the chat. I suppose I should set chat up on the screen here. I mean, it's not like a game where the chat gets in the way of the visuals of the game. I could move my working screens around. I should set the chat up on here as well. That'll be for the next time. Yeah, there's nothing to look at here. There's only the system, and if you only just came across it, then here, if I go here, that's the reference chart. So it's 6 stems that get combined with 6 radicals to produce the consonant combinations that are underneath here, and then it's the vowels. These are the dotted vowels. I'm not sure what difference having a dot on it makes, if it changes the sound to be from a short to a long duration or whatever. But and then 3 tones, high, mid, low. Right, yeah. Well, unfortunately, the thing that I'm making here is going to still use a standard keyboard, Latin layout, until such time as we can have an app built for this. An app should be able to just give us the symbols here, and when you want to write an Igbo word, you just say, I want this stem, this radical, and away you go. Or maybe they'll all be defined already, right? Stem and radical. And then add a vowel and it'll enter it in as text. That would be very cool. That would be the easiest way to access it. And I hope that that's what Lotanna wants to have working in the end there. My version is still going to rely on a keyboard, so if you want to type in SA, you're still going to hit SA, and it will give you the combined radical and stem and vowel. Good question there, Kevin, but I think it's probably English. I believe English is the national language for Nigeria, or a national language for Nigeria. I'm not sure. Good question to ask, though, because it shapes the mapping that I choose. I've got this map to just a regular English language. Yeah, that's what I thought. So if you're using a desktop computer, running Windows or whatever, it's going to be set to English by default. So, okay, cool, very cool. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, so when you build a font, you have to pick a base mapping. The mapping is basically what keys should be expected to be on the keyboard. If you were building a font for Russian, you would pick a Cyrillic mapping because the keys would all be Cyrillic symbols, and it's completely transparent to the user of the font. They don't have to worry about it. But that said, if you want to use a Russian language mapping on a computer that's been installed to use English, you have to go then select the Russian keyboard in your OS whenever you want to type Russian, and then switch back to English when you want to type English. So I've mapped this to, well, I'm going to make sure I've mapped this to standard English ANSI keyboard, which has the widest acceptance on any computer of any OS installed in for English. So that should mean that anybody who uses this on a computer, at least in Nigeria, well, anybody who speaks Igbo who uses this on their computer, if they have it set up for English, will just need to type, and it will display Ndebe symbols instead of Latin symbols. Ideally, down the road, Lotanna can get the Ndebe system included in Unicode, and then we can fix that a bit better. And then Nigeria has like a dozen languages or more. It has quite a few, I believe, doesn't it? Yeah, I definitely got to stick chat up on here and then adjust everything for that. Particularly when I'm getting feedback from people like this that I mean, I can check transcripts later, but I want to be able to make sure I remember stuff like that. Okay. So I need to look here. I'm just checking something. Forgive me for a second. No, that's not where I'm looking. It's over here. Yeah, good question. You said you came across me on Twitter, but you'd already encountered something about Ndebe before that? I'm just wondering how I reached you, or if you just happened across me. I tried to publicize this a bit broadly, but I don't think I did enough preparation and like I didn't publicize it early enough. I did it yesterday, not like days in advance. I'm honestly not used to doing that. Okay. Forgive me while I check some stuff on here. Okay. Oh, hello, Bosk. Bosk is another... Why did it say that that was a link? Oh, it read No Man's Sky. Yeah. No, not doing No Man's Sky today. Talking about fonts. Okay, sure. That's good. That's good to know. I don't use Twitter enough. I don't actually like Twitter all that well, but I got a lot of retweets from my tweet announcing this on Twitter, so I'm going to have to use it more. Yeah, Twitch is mostly people doing games, which is great if you play games. It does have a lot of chatting, just chat, and it does have a creative side. I don't know why it keeps having fits over Bosk. But thank you for the mod there, actually, Kevin. That's another thing I got to learn more about, is the moderating side of things. Like I said, based on what Sugabelli said, I'm probably going to end up doing the next one. Yeah, I know. I had somebody point out that somehow I'd hit a typo on that. I'm glad I said tomorrow, because obviously people would see that the date was wrong. And then I was going to do another tweet to try and fix that, and I ran out of time because I had so many screens to prepare and things like that. So it's on me for not getting everything organized enough in the first place, I guess. Yeah, I probably will. I'll have to try and get a little bit more done and get it a little bit more settled and stuff like that, so there's more to show off to people too. But yeah, if I can do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow as well. So the actual production process is pretty dull. Talking about it is actually kind of interesting. I think I could probably do that for hours. Talking about writing systems is really interesting to me. Hopefully it's engaging enough to other people as well. Talking about language preservation, and therefore cultural preservation, and issues around the independence of speakers to control the way their language is disseminated and how they communicate with each other and things like that. I'm a very strong proponent of that. As I said earlier, you probably weren't here. We lose hundreds of languages a year, permanently gone, because the last native fluent speaker passes away. And there's over 4,000 languages on Earth, but that's a number that is pretty rapidly decreasing. And major languages like English and Mandarin and things like that are going to replace a lot of those languages over time in sort of a brutal survival of the fittest for communications, because of the influence that they have. So doing my little bit to try and help enable the speakers of a language that isn't threatened. I mean, there's, Sugabelli was saying 18 to 30 million people that speak Igbo. But helping those people be able to communicate to each other, that's really neat. And in one thing I read there was somebody saying that speakers of Yoruba have the same problem. And they were wondering whether or not this system could be adapted to use with Yoruba. And that got me thinking that, oh, well, I mean, I'm not aware of the situation for all of these languages in Africa, but maybe there's other languages out there that are being effectively forced to use a Latin keyboard, Latin alphabet solution to write their languages when it's not the best solution. I mean, if it works and it's adequately replacing or representing your language, then that's fine. I don't have a hatred for the Latin alphabet or anything like that, but I do like people to have a solution that lets them write their language accurately so you don't lose some element of it. And one of the things that Sugabelli said was that people writing Igbo find writing the tones for the language kind of irritating, so as a result, a lot of the time they don't. Well, that presumably means that the people that are reading the stuff there then have to go through the mental gymnastics of figuring out which tone they meant so they know which word they meant, and that means that comprehension is reduced or restricted to some degree, and that seems to me to be totally unnecessary. So I'm hoping this project works and that people adopt it and that it helps people. Is that what happens? I mean, somebody types in something and you have to go, did they mean tree or truck or whatever it might be, based on the content, like the context? I mean, if a language has tones, the tone is just as important as the consonant or the vowel in a syllable. It makes a difference in the meaning. I don't speak any tone languages, and I have a hard time bending my brain around recognizing tones as being just as important as those other elements in communications, but they are to somebody who speaks a tone language. And it seems to me if you can't indicate the tone, that would be like me typing English, but the keyboard randomly removes characters here and there. Yeah, sure. Same thing. I mean, and that's a Latin alphabet, and in French, which is a major world language, and that's just a shortcoming of the systems to enter information on a credit card or computerized form and stuff like that. They've been defaulted to English, and that's a whole other level of sort of linguistic colonialism or something like that. It means that the people that go to, yeah, it is. I mean, if your name has an accent on it, then your name should have an accent on it. It may be a little much to expect that a credit card should support all of the other languages in the world and all of the different writing systems, but really, to me, it should have both. It should have like if English is the native or the official language where you are, then it should have an English transcription. But if your name is in Mandarin, it should have the Mandarin on it too. And in this case, if your name is in Igbo, there should be Igbo and then English. And it should reflect your language. It should reflect your in this case, your name properly and stuff like that. Because of the power of the internet and the right, yes, and I freely admit I know nothing about Igbo and Nigerian culture and everything else. I've gone and looked it up on the web. It looks fascinating. It's a place I'd really like to visit, but I don't know anything about it. Well, this is the thing. Sure, yeah, it's a technical limitation, and in some cases, just because it's archaic like that. It'll be a DOS app or a COBOL app or something like that, and their database doesn't support those characters, their interface doesn't support them, they weren't part of the ASCII standard or something like that. Sure. This is why we use Unicode now as a broader standard than the basic ASCII and stuff like that. But most of that software is written from an English language perspective. I mean, most of it's written in the States or in England or in Canada or somewhere where English is the default language, and the software reflects that. If you install Windows, it defaults to English US, I believe. And it's all working towards one version of English and English over everything else. I mean, I know that the internet exists in multiple languages and you can go and browse in other languages and things like that, but it's like spelling. The default spelling in most software, because most of it comes from the US, is US English. So whenever I install a program and stuff like that, I have to go tell it, no, I want to use UK English, because I tend to spell more towards the UK style than the American style as a Canadian English speaker. Actually, in Canada, we kind of use a bit of both. But it bothers me that that's the way things work. I would like to see stuff be more egalitarian. I would like to see it enable speakers of a language and members of a culture to preserve their culture more effectively. Yeah, well, if you go into your software and you say, no, I want English Canada, then it'll let you spell COLOUR instead of OR, and it won't mark it as an error. And then when you're like me and you get lazy and you realize you used an American spelling, it'll produce the American spelling as an error. Half my software actually has me having gone and said, no, allow that spelling, just so I get rid of the errors. But I'm spelling a mixture of both. I don't know how extensive a literature Igbo has at the moment, but being able to extend that by giving another tool to write the language seems like an important thing too, and that will help the culture and the people and everything, so that's cool. No, I'm not sure. I honestly don't use Facebook that much, but there's a good example. If Facebook has a default, even just for English, and it defaults to American spellings and stuff like that, then that is going to affect every other English speaker in the world, unless you can change that setting. And you maybe you can, I don't know, I haven't looked, by encouraging them to use the American spelling just to avoid having an error show up. No offense, but why should the Americans get to define how English is spelled? Oh, I know they do. I know they do. Facebook is just huge, right? Billions of people using it. And like I said, there probably is something in settings where you can set it to Canadian English and it isn't a problem, or Australian English, or whatever it might be. The problem is that, to me, the problem is that we in the West are affecting the way everybody else uses all these tools, because we built most of the tools, and the US built the internet, and it's extended from there, and it's not a deliberate plan on anybody's part, it's just the way things have evolved. But I think it could be done better, and I think that languages are important. Languages are a keystone of culture, and cultures are important. And I'm worried that over time we're going to marginalize all those other cultures, and we're going to lose a lot of languages in the process, just because it's so important for people to speak English, right? Generation A speaks their language, Generation B speaks their language and some English, Generation C is comfortable in English and talks a little bit in their language, and they tend to forget it, and Generation D doesn't speak the original language at all, they speak English. just because that's the way to get ahead, and because everybody else does, and because it's become the lingua franca for the world right now. I don't like that erosion of language. I mean, it happens with people that immigrate here. You know, they grew up here, and sometimes they speak whatever language their parents spoke or their grandparents spoke, but by the time you've gone 2 or 3 generations, quite often they don't. And that's just a shame. Our society is better when we have a mixture of different cultures and languages and everything else interacting with each other. A sort of monoculture of everybody speaking the same language and thinking the same way and everything else like that doesn't have any color to it. And I don't like that. Well, thank you. So, I mean, I'm really excited for Lotanna's project here, and I'm very happy to have speakers of Igbo come here. Hopefully, I'm not saying that wrong. I looked it up, and it looked like in the States they say Igbo, but in British English they say Igbo, and I imagine it's probably somewhere in between, like Igbo. But the whole process of helping somebody try and expand the methods of literacy and stuff like that. Yeah, same thing happened with me. My dad's family were Polish, but they spoke German. They lived somewhere near Gdansk, Danzig at the time. His great-grandparents emigrated here in the 1890s, I think, to Canada. But because of World War II, my dad and his family didn't speak German much, except when they were alone. Because there was a lot of resentment over that and a lot of prejudice and everything. And of course, they were Polish, and there was a lot of discrimination against Poles at the same time. So he had discrimination for his last name, and then people didn't like hearing German being spoken and stuff like that. So as a result, I never learned a word of German. He didn't want me to learn it. The great irony for me is that by the time I made it to high school in the town that I lived in, I had like 5 really close friends, and 3 of them spoke German, and the 4th learned German. So I admit I should have studied German and become part of that clique and been able to communicate better and everything. But I was intimidated by the fact that 3 of them were totally fluent in it, and one other guy who learned it was really brilliant at learning languages. So I took Russian correspondence in high school and tried to learn something different. But I was surrounded by people speaking German, because there's an awful lot of Germans that live in North America. So the same thing happened. My grandparents spoke German and some English. My dad spoke English, but he also understood German and could speak to his parents, but he didn't want me to learn it. So I never learned any of it. And that's a shame. Yeah, and I understand that Dutch is very close to English in some ways, but has an awful lot of sounds that we don't have. I've heard it spoken. My wife's side of the family has Dutch in their heritage too, but I don't really know any Dutch. I think I know one word. Yeah, well, I tried to track down where my family came from on my father's side, and I think they came from a place called what's it? Unitslav Gmina, which is a tiny little village southwest of Gdansk. It was Danzig at the time because it was German at the time. And I think the village had like 50 or 60 people in it. I would love to go there sometime and just find out how far back my heritage goes there, just to know about it. But my great-grandfather was apparently an English teacher in Poland, and he picked his family up and came over to Canada and settled in the prairies in the 1890s. So, yes, I've heard Dutch people say that they thought their language was a little weird. I think the only word I can ever remember from Dutch is overgeven, which is like to throw up or something like that. Not too useful unless you're feeling sick. It happened to be in the Netherlands. Regina. I think they settled in Regina. I know my dad was born in Regina. I've lost track of that whole side of the family. I don't know what's happened to any of them. I mean, obviously my grandparents have passed on, but... Vergiffen? Okay, well, I'd only ever heard it. Ich spreche etwas Deutsch, aber nur ein bisschen. Bisschen. Ja, ich spreche ein bisschen von Deutsch. And that's about it, right? Ich möchte eine Tasse Kaffee. I would like a cup of coffee. That's about it. And it's about where my Russian is too, right? I know almost nothing. I took it in university. I went there and I forgot it all as a consequence too. If you don't use a language, you forget it. And that's actually another factor of this. If people are not used to writing in their language and reading in their language, then they don't gain fluency in their language. So any tool that helps people write their language has got to be a better thing, I think. So I'll hope that this amounts to that. You're right that I've ended up talking here rather than doing. But I've had enormous fun talking, and I've had a lot of... Oh, you're speaking quite a bit more if you've had 5 years of it. I've had great feedback from Sugabelli. She sent me your book. I've got to check that out too. And from... I'll try it again. Emeka Onyekwelu, something like that. That's all been very good information, and that's going to help immensely as well. Good. I'd like to try anyway, and of course there's going to be tones in there too that I'm missing entirely, right? Emeka Onyekwelu, but who knows what the tones are. I'm making an attempt. I've lost you, actual Kevin. No idea what you're talking about there. I'm really glad you came here too. You've been very helpful. I'm really glad to have you come here. This is a project about doing something for the Igbo language, so having somebody who is an Igbo speaker show up is awesome. Having Sugabelli here was awesome because she's the one who created the writing system, and yeah, I want to help her publicize this stuff and get the attention it deserves to see if it's a viable thing for people. The first step is to build a font, then to build some software and things like that, and then yeah, I know. I will be self-serving here. If there's anybody watching who hasn't followed me, please follow me. 50 followers on Twitch is an important breaking point in progressing up the ladder of Twitch. It lets me become an affiliate. I have to apply for it and have to get approved and everything, but one more follow is all I need. I'm sitting at 49 right now, and if there's anybody out there who can give me a follow to boost me up to 50, that would be terrific, and I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. So, yes, I'll have to do more broadcasts of this. I'll have to get some more of this font evolved so that I can do it and broadcast it and explain it to people better. And yes, follows don't cost anything. But I'm really stoked on doing this stuff now. And I really appreciate everybody who's shown up. Even if you didn't say anything in chat, just everybody who's come here to listen. I really appreciate that. And if you know anybody that might be interested in this sort of thing, please steer them this way. Yes. Yes, if you're new to Twitch, a follow on Twitch is like a subscribe on YouTube. A subscribe on Twitch is another thing, and it does actually cost money, some of which would come to me, but I can't do subscriptions yet because I need to get to affiliate status and go beyond that and stuff like that. There's a whole progression thing. So for now, if you're here and you can click follow, that does me a terrific favor, if you haven't done it already. And then there's the notifications thing. Yep. If you follow me on, well, here, I made this screen up. I might as well show it again. If you care to support me, if you go to Patreon, you can join my Patreon for $1 a month. If you want to watch me on Twitch, that's the Twitch address, That Font Guy. On Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, I am also That Font Guy. And I am uploading the stuff that comes off of Twitch to... Yes, you did, and I appreciate that. I'm uploading the stuff that comes off of Twitch to YouTube, so if you come back here, the Twitch keeps stuff for a certain amount of time. When I can get to affiliate status, it'll keep it longer than it does right now. But I take everything off of Twitch and upload it to YouTube as well. So if you don't find something here that you watched earlier and came back to finish watching, you can go find it on YouTube. There's a 24-hour delay, or there will be a 24-hour delay before I'm allowed to post something from Twitch to YouTube. Right now there is no delay because I'm not an affiliate, because I need one more follower. It's all a big ball of potential here. Yeah, 14 days otherwise. If you go to my Twitch channel and look at the previous videos, you're going to find it's all me doing gameplay of No Man's Sky. But I'm going to do more stuff like this in the future. I had always intended to do this, and I started doing the broadcasts in No Man's Sky mostly to get me used to interacting with an audience and being a DJ-ish type thing, right? A talk radio person or something like that. I still have a terrible habit of staring off to the side here where the chat is instead of staring to the camera there. I'm trying to fight that. But this is all a massive learning process, and I'm not really a public speaker or anything like that. So I've done the gaming stuff to try and get the hang of it, but I always intended to want to do this sort of thing with fonts down the road. I know it's generally kind of dry to watch somebody build a font, and I haven't actually done very much of it here. I've just kind of explained what I'm going to do, but I do want to build this thing, and I'll come back and do it. Do presentations on it to let people see what state it's in and things like that. When I have a working version of this font, well, I have to talk this over with Lotanna, but my intention was to release it under a thing called the SIL Open License, which is like the GNU Public License. It's an open font license, which means that you can freely use the font for whatever purposes that you want, but if you modify it, you have to notify that, include that inside the archive for the font and things like that. It's basically an open source license for fonts. It has some slight differences from regular open source, but SIL is a very well recognized organization for creating fonts for writing systems for languages around the world. So I'm going to release this under the SIL. I will post it to Patreon. It will not be behind my firewall on Patreon, or not firewall, paywall. So anybody will be able to download it. And if changes are required and I have to make updates to the font, then I will post those to the Patreon under National Neographics as well. So if Sugabella can use this in the app that she's working on, then that'll be great. If people want to use it for just use on a computer, it'll be available once I've built the thing. There's just a lot of building to go on first. I won't be posting iterations of it while it's still only partially functional. I'll wait until I've got what I think is at least version 1 that can then be tested. And then there's all sorts of minor little problems that can happen when you create a font. The most common one is the spacing. When you draw a glyph, it puts a little bit of space after it before it draws the next glyph. And you have to deliberately tell it the spacing of that glyph, and if you forget, then it's sitting at the 0 mark and one glyph will overwrite the next one and it looks bad. It's really easy to see, it's really easy to fix, you just got to find it. And this font I think is going to end up with 1193 glyphs in it, and therefore, well, Boss can probably tell us off the top of his head, 1193 squared is going to produce an awful lot of potential errors, and it'll be more than that. Actually, no, I guess the combination would be 1193 to the 1193rd possibility. You got to go through and define each glyph, but when you see errors, then you got to go and fix them. So I don't know when version 1 will be ready, but I should have a sort of beta version good enough for presentations here, hopefully sometime soon. And I'll do more broadcasts on that down the road. So yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, then I always announce them there. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but if you were here for that, but actual Kevin and Bosk and I have known each other for 40 years. We went to university together, and we also play games and everything else. Oh, there we go. Bosk is the math whiz. It must be wonderful to speak a foreign language like mathematics. I don't. I mean, I took all the stuff in high school, and I could do it in high school, and then I never needed it in the real world. And then I discovered programming after I got out of university. So I never really needed it for programming. So I don't do math. If I need a number calculation, I go grab my phone and use the basic calculator to add A to B and get C. That's about it. My innumeracy is not very extensive. But that's another thing to point out too here. This system has its own number system, which is not unusual in a lot of writing systems. And it's not just echoing the Arabic numerals that we use in the West. You go grab your phone and call Bosk. No, it's okay, I got it. 142, wow, that's a big number. Okay, so this has its own number system as well, where the numbers up top there are modified by the stems, the markers at the bottom there, and that's not uncommon in a lot of writing systems, but that's another thing that's been affected by the Western use of Arabic numerals. I mean, our number system came from Arabic and got evolved by us, and it's probably the most efficient system we could use. So it naturally is used everywhere, but that's another thing that's been affected, is number systems and systems of measurement and stuff like that. And I don't know what Lotanna has done for punctuation, but that's another thing that is tending to take hold in other writing systems. So I think in, like, when you write Japanese, there's kana, kanji, katakana, and hiragana. And one are is the full logographic glyphs that were adapted from Chinese. They've undergone some simplification, but they're based on Chinese, and they're one big mess of marks. As a symbol indicates one word. And then there's katakana and hiragana, which are syllabaries, like Ndebe is going to be, and one of them is used to write Japanese words, and one of them is used to write foreign words or foreign names. Yeah, hopefully. I'll have to look at that. I haven't been doing very much highlighting, so I'm going to have to get the hang of that. The thing I understand, though, is that our Western punctuation is getting adopted into languages like Japanese and things like that, I think. Now, they also have a Romanized version using the Latin alphabet that people use. Same thing happens in Chinese. There's Pinyin, I think it's called, which is writing Chinese using English language characters. I don't think it conveys the tone, though, so I think it's the same problem that Igbo has had in using Latin characters, is that we just don't have tone marks in Latin, so they have to come up with some method of indicating that, or they just don't bother. And I think the same thing has happened with Pinyin and things like that. Japanese is not a tone language. It is something called a Mora language, and I don't understand the Mora system, but basically it has a different variation on what is a syllable in Japanese than is what we generally consider to be a syllable in almost any other language. And I don't understand how Mora work, but it's something to do with long and short duration vowels, and whether or not they comprise a single syllable, or they're considered to have the weight of two syllables or something like that. It's really complex. Yeah, so that's been 3 hours, and I think that I am simultaneously running out of steam and also dying to work on this. And I think that I need to go do a bit of both. So, yes, one last call. If anybody out there is watching this and hasn't followed me, please follow me. That'll get me from 49 to 50, as you can see on the screen there. And 50 lets me apply to join the Twitch affiliate program and changes how long my videos stay on screen. Okay, I will hang on. Sure. Although, yes, follow me on Twitter if you aren't already. I always tweet in advance. I'm going to tweet even more in advance this time. No, actual Kevin Bosk is trying to solve that, and that's awesome if you can do it. There we go. Alice the Rabbit. Thank you very, very much. You are now my 50th follower. And Kevin has insisted that I need to go put a hat on. So just a second, and I will come back with a hat as a 50th follower acknowledgement. Of course, I'm wearing a black hat on a green background. It doesn't work very well. I got my pork pie on. Thank you very, very much, Alice the Rabbit. Awesome. I now have my 50 followers. That is a major milestone, and I really, really appreciate you following me. Now, you may or may not ever come back, but hopefully you do. I've had quite a few people show up here, and I'm really, really pumped over that. Well, thank you. Thank you. I really like your dad. Long time friend. Yes, thank you. I'm pumped. Oh well, hopefully you like the sound of my voice and my nattering on and on. Yeah, I did not expect that to happen during this broadcast. I kind of hoped it might, because I wasn't sure how far it was going to reach out and how many people I might get, but I'm really glad that it has happened, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for coming in from the kitchen or wherever you were and signing up to be a follower here for me, Alice the Rabbit. I also like the name. It's greatly appreciated. And everybody else who has followed me today. I've gone up 9 followers, I think, today or something like that. That just sounds rude. It's funny. I mean, in a sense, this is just me talking to my computer. It feels kind of odd because there's nobody else in the room, and it's kind of hard to talk about something when you don't have somebody physically there listening to you. Now, actual Kevin used to do radio, so he's used to this, right? He used to be a radio broadcaster, no problem. And lots of other stuff, I know. But for me, it's been kind of strange to get used to that idea that, okay, there's an audience out there. I've got a little piece of sticky note with the word people pointing at my camera on my computer there, so I try and remember to look up there, even though chat is down here. No, I know. Actually, Twitch and things like these have an advantage over traditional radio, because when you're on the radio as a broadcaster, you can't just click on a button and see who's listening. But with this, you can. I mean, I have to actually go and do it. Well, the tool isn't the way I would want to, but I can see names of the people that are here, and that's cool. I can see that there's an audience, right? Can't tell if they're listening, but all I can see is the screen handle. Yeah. So I see a screen handle, and I don't see it at all unless you talk in chat or I deliberately go and look. But the fact that you know people are out there is not quite the same as having people standing in the room there. But it's still an odd experience to get used to. I don't have, whatever you had, 10, 15 years as a broadcaster. Yeah, that would be a little odd, but yes, anybody could be out there under a screen handle, and I don't know who they are. I mean, I had a couple of people come and follow me before I started this broadcast, which I never thought about happening either, presumably so they get notification that this is going to happen, and that's cool. That's really cool. Picking people up from having sent messages out on Twitter and posted in 3 or 4 forums on Reddit and Instagram and everything else, and then people come, Facebook, people come here, and I get to talk to them, and in some cases hear back from them, and it's really cool, and it's a sort of high, like when I'm done doing one of these Twitch sessions, even if it's just gaming and it was only 2 or 3 people there, I can't calm down right away. I end up going for a walk around the block or something like that before I can go to bed. A lot of my broadcasts end up being done in the evening and end quite late. So it's really kind of curious, because really all I'm doing is talking to my computer. And there's some people out there in the world at the other end but until they type back to me, I don't actually get any feedback or whatever. Well, yes, I have always loved writing systems. In grade 4 in school, I actually failed a quiz because the teacher marked everything as a mistake because I chose to answer all the questions in Norse runes. And she didn't read Norse runes. I don't know what made me do that, but I know that at least that early on I was fascinated with writing systems, and I learned how to read the Norse runes and then start writing English in Norse runes. And I've been fascinated with them ever since. So when I went to university, I didn't realize you could actually take linguistics. I was going to be a history major. And then there was these linguistics courses, and you could study how languages work, and wow, I could take those. So that ended up being my major. No, I was completely oblivious to it. I wasn't doing it to be a pain to the teacher or anything like that. I don't know what was going on in my head, but I've always been interested in languages. I am lousy at learning languages. I'm just terrible. I'm not bad at learning the pronunciation, but I'm terrible at learning languages. I really only speak English and then smatterings of words in other languages, like literal smatterings. If I can say this right. Wordalapitibalung is the man bites the dog in Nyangamarda, which is an Australian Aborigine language. And it's spoken really quick, something like 3 times the speed of typical English conversation, although that varies from English speaker to English speaker and their locale and stuff. That's all I remember of Nyangamarda. My first year linguistic teacher, professor, was the world expert in Nyangamarda. So I've picked up fragments of stuff here and there, all of which is useless as far as communication is concerned, because it's like 1 or 2 words in language A and 1 or 2 in language B. I'm now going to take the hat off. First off, so you can see the top of my head, because I suppose I could get rid of the green screening for this. But I didn't apply a filter to this one, I don't think. A chroma key. I think it... No, maybe it's kept it because it was the original setting. Yeah, or I could get a different colored hat. The problem is that despite the fact I'm wearing a red shirt right now, so it shows up on camera, almost all the clothes I own are black. Which, I mean, makes me look sort of like a headless ghost if I wear a black shirt with the green screening on here. No, I'm not going to spray paint that hat. I spent a lot of good money on that hat. I'll get a different hat. Actually, I have several hats, now that I think about it. I can switch hats. For anybody else out there, this nonsense about hats, actual Kevin figures hats are very important to Twitch broadcasters. That you have to have the right hat. He certainly has a hat. Possibly more than one hat. So it's sort of a running joke that you have to have a hat. Well, I have a hat. I'll wear a different hat next time. I've got various silly hats. Anyway, enough about hats. I think that I am going to stop this broadcast now. Yes, I have a fluorescent green shirt somewhere, and I accidentally sat down to do a Twitch session with that on at one point. Yes, there is a little bit of glare, that's true. Hopefully it's not overwhelming when you're looking at it on the computer. I'm seeing me in miniature on the screen here, and it doesn't look too bad, but, you know, if it's blinding, I can always do that while I'm talking to you, which would confuse the hell out of anybody who came in partway through a conversation. What's wrong with his head? Did he injure himself? I'm going to call this done. I would really like to thank everybody who showed up. especially Sugabelli, who invented the Ndebe system and showed up today to talk. And of course, Actual Kevin for his help. Thank you for Alice the Rabbit, of course, for giving me my 50th follower. That's terrific. And I'm going to try it again if he's here. No. Eme Onye Dekwelu, who was on earlier somewhere there, has left the chat. But thank you to him too if he goes back and watches any of this later. Yeah, if you've got anything that you'd like to see me talk about, you can enter it in the chat. I can check that. You can reach me via the various screens that I had there on the Support Me page, which I'll put back up again. You can get a hold of me on Twitter. You can watch the video when I upload it to YouTube. It'll be available on Twitch as a video of the day for the next 14 days at least. And if you want to support me in what I'm doing, go to Patreon, National Neographics, and fire me $1 a month, and it all helps. Contributions from my Patreons in the past helped pay for 1/3 of the cost of upgrading my software that I have here, and I really appreciate that. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. I will stop broadcasting here. And like I said, it should be up on YouTube in a little bit. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time. Be sure to watch Twitter.